All right, fair warning. I'm going to record this. But when I record this stuff, your voices are, your pictures don't show up there, and your voice is only recorded through my microphone. So if you haven't looked at any of the other ones. All right, so this week's one and only assignment is Unit 6, Assignment 1, Building Your Own Web Server. I've got this handy-dandy LAMP setup document, which is just a bunch of links to various internet setup guides. Most of these are AWS documentation. Although, how many of you have a DNS name? None? Nobody's got a mywebsite.com or anything? Isaac, are you back with us yet? You seem like the kind of guy who would have a domain name.
I have one for a dance company that I run, but that's through Squarespace.
Gotcha. You actually probably could get away with using them for DNS. Like a GRCC web apps or whatever as the first part. I wanted to, as long as Dan Messler is a guy who runs a blog called Unsupervised Learning. Dan Missler. And Dan had a really good recommendation the other day. Might have been where he was talking about using, like, if you're going to build content of any sort, using a domain that you control to try and get the middle companies out of your way. So, like, really recommends that you do this sort of thing. If you don't have one, you don't feel like paying GoDaddy, you don't feel like, there's a bunch of free services out there on the internet that will give you a domain name and host the DNS and all that sort of stuff for free. So the one I used here is Freenom, and if you're not interested, if I can't convince you to getting a good domain name for your for yourself going forward, these guys will give you one that will get you through the class, maybe. Last time I taught this class, when everybody signed in all at the same time, we basically like knocked that we tricked their service into thinking we were trying to like scam them. And so they stopped handing out names to like people at GRCC. So you may need to use like a Gmail account that's not GRCC in order to get signed up. But you should give it a shot, because you will need a DNS name to make this work. And they're not going to need a credit card from you or anything like that. Although, again, ChrisGraveland.com is out there, I'm sure. DrewWuja.com is out there. SawyerCole.com, waiting to happen. I do ROZE.MA from the Moroccan government as like my vanity emails and stuff. So if you're going to someday get a job as a web developer or an app developer, it might not hurt to have a domain name that's your name that you can, use as your sort of portfolio for some of your projects. So there's my pitch. You might consider using one of these. So they will give you free .tk's, .ml's, .ga's, .cs, .gq's. No payments. They've got some policies that you have to follow. They'll sell you the other types of domains as well. But again, if you're going to do it long term, you might want to break down. And Isaac, do you know what you paid GoDaddy for your domain?
No, I don't remember.
It seems to me like domain name registrations are like $1. Namecheap. They're the ones paying for the cool Google top link. Domain host, Bluehost, Namecheap, GoDaddy still on the list. So not bad. Pardon me for just a second.
Hi, I'm in the middle of class. How can I help you?
So Mom told me to ask you this because she wants to know your answer.
Yeah.
But since I just completed my last assignment on Schoology, can I help my team out on League of Legends?
Go for it.
Okay.
Man, how do you ground your kids from their computers when their sport is now on their computer? Makes it hard. Dad, can I help my team out on League of Legends? All right, so you guys trying the free route? Go in and sign up for something that will be yours, because you'll need one for this assignment. You can use these guys. You can use one you already own. You can go get a new one. I'm going to see if I can... Anybody got any cool ideas I should register?
Notascammer.tk.
Seems totally legit, right? So I'm going to hit register a new domain here. How about like... Think I should hyphenate? Totally. Totally legit.tk. What could you do with GQ? Totally legit.gq. Is it gentlemen's quarters? Is that what GQ stands for?
Yeah. Quarterly.
I thought it was quarterly as well. But gentlemen's quarters was the first thing that came up. Gentlemen's quarterly.gq. Oh, somebody beat me to it. Nope. No underscores in domain names. Ooh, I can get gentlemen's quarter.gq. All right. And then a bunch that you could pay for. I'm going to check out for free here. All right, so you could forward this domain, which we don't want to do, but if you had like an up and running website, this is, it would just create a forwarding DNS record and send it on to somewhere. I'm not paying money. No. Oh, that is another interesting thing you can do here. If you pay them money, you can hide behind an ID shield. So it'll just say their website as opposed to putting your name in a DNS record, which will be searchable. So if I do Anybody know how to look up the owner of a website? Don't everybody talk all at once.
I've seen it before, but
If you wanted to find out who is a website, so this is the who is record for cybercommand.ml, which is one of the other websites I used. So we also do this in my web application and security class and our ethical hacking class, where sometimes you have to do these same kind of things to set up a web page that you can scam somebody with. For testing purposes only, obviously. But cybercommand.ml looked a whole lot like cybercommand.mil. All right, so what are you guys signing up for? Reading all the terms and conditions. The other ones I've done in the past is just like CIS 147 or whatever, the class name.
I did Isaac GRCC projects, and it says I need to wait a few minutes for a confirmation email.
You're like one of these?
Yeah.
Good deal. And then which email address did you use?
It looks like you have an error.
Where this? Or this?
The attention. Some of your domains could not be registered.
They caught on to me. They're like, hey. That's okay. You guys are the ones that need it. I've already got a bunch in here. So refresh your email real quick and see how long it takes them to get you that access. I'm going to set up grcc.webapps.ml again because it's dead since I haven't used it for this class in a while. Since probably last winter. So hopefully, once you get your domain, you get it in a list like this, which was services, my domains. Yeah. I did that cyber command one a while ago. So we learned about who is. Anybody know what DNS does?
Domain name service?
Yep.
Doesn't it just convert domain names into IP addresses?
Bingo. And so you can kind of see how this format works, right? So on one side, I've got domain names. On the other side, I've got IP addresses. We will get you an IP address. Once you have the IP address, it goes in here. But this is the part that's going to take a minute. You're going to have to wait for it to get confirmed and all that business. So get started now. Registering a cheap domain name. Next, after you've got yourself a domain name, we're going to need a server for the domain name. So we are recommending that you launch an Amazon Web Services server to do so. So you can technically use these servers for free, but by virtue of being a GRCC student in this class, if you did, anybody remember the assignment number? Unit 5, assignment 2 or something? Where you had to go and sign up and get your AWS email. You should be in this class. So you should see something like that. The class will launch a connection to a company called Vocarum. And Vocarum is the company that manages AWS for AWS classrooms. Which in this classroom, I should have a list of everybody's email and whatnot. when you guys go to this, do you see something much like this?
Yeah.
Cool. So inside of the documentation that we had pulled up, get the WebStorm thing out of there.
Where did you go again?
So I log in, and yours might look a little different. When I log into AWS Educate, and then I go to my classes here, when I click on Web App Programming, I go there. But I'm a teacher, so mine might look a little different. So you might see classes where I'm a student, as opposed to classes where I'm an educator, and then go to classroom.
Me, it just went right into the right classroom because I only have the one, so.
Gotcha. But yeah, let's make sure everybody can get to the Vocarum AWS Educate account status and workbench, which is this thing. Because ultimately where you want to get to is the AWS Council. So you could like pay cash money for the opportunity to get one of these yourself with your own AWS account. But this is the way you can get $50 of AWS money for this class and not have to worry about like incurring crazy AWS charges because you run too much compute or something. So we're trying to make sure you can't accidentally shoot yourself in the foot and run up a bunch of credits. So there's a nice AWS instant over here that'll show, kind of give you a high level explanation. But really, like launching a web server is not too tough. So everybody, thumbs up if you are this far, if you can see what you need to see. All right, I got 2. Sawyer. All right, and then Isaac, you're just a black bar. We'll never know.
Yeah, I'm in AWS.
Cool. All right, so now.
What did you click on to get to that? I have them on the right. What's on the left?
Oh, on the left, this is the assignment document here.
Okay.
The AWS launch an instance, this link right here, has a whole walkthrough on how all this goes down. So again, in the past, I've had students go through and use like their own AWS accounts if you already had one, and that's fine too. But we are going to launch a virtual machine, which is like right above my head here. Maybe we should put the directions over here and this over here. And like, here's the list of all the friendly AWS servers that are out there. Feel free to strip it down to free tier only if you want to make extra for sure that you're not going to get in trouble and accrue any unintentional charges. And let's see if this has changed. Yeah, it's still got the 2018 Amazon Linux 2. This one will probably be fine. Interesting that you can run ARM. I wouldn't recommend it, but not too bad. What if we did micro in the search? You can also run Windows, all sorts of fun stuff. Oops. Don't hit the back arrow though. It's not going to do what you want. Also, interesting to note, have any of you guys done the Linux course? It's interesting to point out that Amazon is running its own version of Linux these days. This is our general purpose free tier eligible T2 micro. Thing is, on our accounts, these won't be free, but if you wanted to back this up and put it onto a free account later on, like if you do in fact create a website that you would be interested in sharing with a potential employer, you'd be all ready to rock. We're gonna pick that and let us review and launch our machines. There's our info. Let's not mess with any of this, but you can review it. On-demand purchasing. We're going to go through and assign a public IP address later. It's got a hard drive somewhere. Some tags on it. All right. Feeling ready. Are you guys ready?
Do we launch?
I think we should do this.
Ready?
Wait. We want to connect to it, right? Just make sure. SSH TCP 222 is cool. Custom. This what we're looking at here with the security groups is just saying who can connect to this AWS instance. You could, if you were so inclined and you were a little security conscious, narrow this down to like the address of a computer you were going to use to control it. So like you could put the like IP address of your house or your office in here to try and prevent people from getting to it. So that should be there by default. So if you just hit launch, you're probably fine. All right. Does anybody have a key pair? Dang it, me neither. So we probably should create one. I'm going to call it CIS. No, let's just call it Cyber Command. Was I doing Cyber Command or was I doing Web Apps? I'm going to call it Web Apps. Doink. And notice I get this crazy PEM file, grcc webapps.pem, that I download. We'll have to play with this a little bit to make it work the way we want it to work. So it is sitting here in my downloads. But we're good now. We're gonna have to convert it so it works with tools like Putty and Winscp. But this is what you do these days in lieu of passwords to connect to your EC2 instances. All right, download the PEM file. PS, if you lose this, you lose the machine. So maybe a good idea to make a copy of it someplace that you won't lose it. Just drag that out to a backup. And I'm all set. Launch. My instance is now launched. All right. So I have a server running in the cloud. How many of you have servers running in the cloud? Now, if only we could connect to them, right? We'll get there. If we go back to the instances screen, and we wait, okay. There is our server up and running. When it launched, the name of the key, which security group. So the name of the key is which key pair I'm going to use to connect to it. So there's a public key, there's a private key. I've got the private key. We're all good. That launch wizard security group was the group that allowed me to connect to it. So right now, anybody can connect to it via that SSH, which is the secure shell.
Where did you go to look at this?
So at the bottom, this is the instances page on the EC2 dashboard, but at the bottom of that last page was a button that said review instances. But if you went all the way back to the platform, under the EC2 dashboard, you'd see running instances, and you could get to it from there. So far, so good, right? So I have a public IPv4 address, thanks to the nice folks at Amazon. There's only 4 billion of these in the world, and one of them's mine. Makes me feel good. Problem with this address is it's going to change all the time. So, like your home connection to the internet, very infrequently, but sometimes you will get a different address. So if you go on Google and you do like a what is my IP, it tells you the IP address of your your home network connection. So again, if you wanted to do the if you wanted to make sure that only you could get to this thing via SSH, which I'll never need to SSH to it, so you'd be fine. You could set it up like that. All right, so if everybody has a running instance, we're doing great.
Yep.
So the next link in our document here is called Elastic IPs, Amazon's permanent address service. And this is what you use in order to make an IP address that won't change. Right? So it's static, it doesn't change over time. You need to allocate one to your account. So you need to say, hey, I'd like an Elastic IP. And then you need to associate it with the particular instance in question. So you need to associate it with that server we just made. And we can do all that here. And the instructions are not exactly reflowable. You can almost get them all on the same page. Let's close this. Let's close this. So it gives us a link to the AWS EC2 Council, which we've seen before and you'll get familiar with. On there is Elastic IP is like the second thing in here. If you're ever wondering where your server physically lives, it appears that I got assigned US East, which lives in North Virginia. Oops. I don't currently have any Elastic IPs. I would like to get some. I think I can see both of those at the same time. I'm fine with one in this scope. So I'm going to allocate me an IP address. US East is fine. Amazon's pool of IPv4 addresses is great. Let's allocate it. And now 3.222.72.222 is mine. Haha. So far, so good. Everybody managed to get themselves an IP address.
Yep.
Are they in the same neighborhood? 3 dot? Or are they all over the place?
35 dot.
Mine's 3.215.
That's pretty close. I think we want to associate this address with an instance. You should only have the one running, right? And then Viola. My IP address has been associated with my instance. Now there is a permanent public-facing address for that server. So there is an IP address.
How did you associate it?
Under actions here,
Oh.
associate elastic IP address. And then you go through and pick the instance out of the list. It was a dropdown, even though it didn't look like a dropdown.
I still haven't gotten a confirmation email back from Freenom.
Not surprised. What do you want for the price, you know? It will come in handy, though, right? This is where you're going to point the DNS to. All right. So far, so good. We have an elastic IP address. That much pretty straightforward. So back to the assignment. Now we need to connect to it. This is a little hairy if you've never done SSH before. You guys ever used a tool like Putty or something like that to connect to a server on the internet? Okay. Today will be a good day for that. Connect to your Linux instance using the SSH client. We're going to have to do a little something. We're not using, are any of you guys using Linux as your primary network? Or as your primary daily driver? If not, that's not going to be terribly helpful. So although if you are, there it is there. For Windows, we are probably going to want to use a tool called Putty, P-U-T-T-Y. The download page is here. The latest version is apparently .74. You can trust it. It's also, if you use Nunite to keep your freebie apps up to date, it is listed in there. But you should grab yourself a copy real quick.
Where was the Putty link?
In Google, or there's one in the Connect using Putty link in the EC2 manual we're kind of following along with. But if you just type Putty into the Google bar, usually the download's the first thing. Although Google knows stuff about me, so do you guys get that if you just put Putty into Google?
Are you on the Connect using Putty tab of AWS?
Yes. Connecting to your Linux instance from Windows using Putty is the name of it.
Here we go. Download and install Putty from the Putty download page.
There you go, right here.
Instances.
This is the next part that is a little tricky. We need to convert that PEM file that we just downloaded and made super secure, so it's someplace safe, right? Nobody's lost it yet. We've had 5 minutes. Plenty of time to do that. So you have to convert it using this Putty Gen software. So if I go, I actually guess I could bother to type Putty Gen, and it would be listed under my applications in Windows. But it's basically just here to do this kind of file conversion nonsense. I wonder if I can drag and drop. Can I drag and drop? Nope. Generate a public private key pair. Load a public private key pair. Load. Oops, this is probably behind my head. So I'm going to load all files and figure out where I left that. And my desktop's getting awfully messed up. Full of junk. You can tell when I start getting busy.
Did you click load out of Putty?
Nope. I started Putty Gen. If you start Putty, oops, I started Putty Gen again. But the Putty key generator. Right now we got to teach it about that key file, and that's this PEM file we got from AWS. Notice like AWS says Putty doesn't support the private format, and Putty says you're using the old PEM format. I like how they kind of point fingers at each other. Then you can save the private key in Putty's own special format. So has everybody got as far as getting their Putty keys loaded into the key generator?
No, I'm still loading it in.
Where are we loading from? I got a lot. Oh, I see. Now I see what's going on.
You rocking and rolling?
Oh, I had to click all files.
Correct. You have to click all files, or it's only looking for the PPK files that Putty likes natively. This is fall 20 grcc web apps. Save it someplace where you won't lose it, so you don't have to go through the trouble of converting it again. Although you could put it in someplace kind of out of the way, because you'll be calling it from Putty going forward. It's not like you'll have to find that file. You could add a passphrase if you wanted to, but I don't know as your system needs this kind of security. But now we should be able to connect to Putty, to connect to your server using Putty.
After loading it into Putty generator, do we have to click generate or load or anything?
I don't think I did. It shows me the key that it created. Does it show yours?
Yeah.
And gave you a little OK button that says, okay, we've got a key loaded in.
I don't know if I'm seeing the same screen that you are for Putty key gen.
There you go. Then you should be there. There was a dialog that says, hey, we imported this foreign key. It was in the old PEM format because Amazon's lame. Save it as, save private key out as something else. And then you will have a key loaded in the private format.
Yeah, I saved the public and the private key. Is there anything else that I need to do, or can I close it?
No, I think you're done there. Just need to be able to find them. I don't even think you need the public key. There's a copy living on your server that will be authenticating against. So where we want to end up here is everybody should have a PEM or a PPK derived from the PEM they got from the web server. So your web server, you downloaded a public-private key pair, you saved out a private key for basically the key to get you into your server, particularly apropos. And now I saved mine as fall 20 grcc web apps PPK. So if you've got that far, let me see a thumbs up if you have. I didn't see a thumbs up out of Drew or Isaac.
I have private.ppk.
All right. Shh, don't tell. Drew, where'd you get stuck?
I got stuck after I installed Putty. I got lost. I'm on Putty right now. I clicked on generate, or was I not supposed to do that?
You did not need to do that.
Okay, so I was supposed to load that, right?
Correct.
One that we saved earlier.
Correct. So in here,
Oh,
now,
okay.
now you got to know where you saved it. And you have to change it from, by default it says Putty private key. You have to change it to all files and then go hunt down that file you put somewhere.
That PEM file.
Correct.
Okay.
And you don't need to add a password if you don't want to. It would be more secure if you did. It would mean if somebody broke in, here's your threat. analysis. If somebody breaks into your computer, they will now have access to the server running your homework. So there's your threat analysis. If you can live with that. If not, put a password on it. You'll be protected from that person trying to do dastardly deeds to this server that's going to turn off after you run up $50 worth of charges on it.
So after you load it, you press save public key?
Private.
Private.
So that's the secret key. The public key is exactly that. It's public. You can put that out into the internet, and anything signed with that public key will only be decrypted by your private key. Anything signed, encrypted with your private key can only be decrypted with your public key. It's magic. Magic. If you would like to know more about the magic, CIS178 is our information security class where we talk about cryptography at a high level. So the end result should be you have saved somewhere one of these. I want to make sure everybody succeeds today. Leave no person behind. And if you want to, you can go ahead and move on. Drew, give us a thumbs up if you get your private key saved.
Just saved it.
Good. All right, next we're going to use the actual real Putty. Anybody know why the TTY is capitalized? Once upon a time, we used teletype terminals, TTYs. And somebody thought Poo TTY would be a cute name because it spells Putty. All right, so it says start Putty. In the category pane, that's this pane over here, choose session. I believe that's where it starts by default. In the host name box, do the following. Enter your instance's public DNS name. Oh, so this is why we went and got an IP address. So you could use the DNS. I'm going to use my IP as it's the address of the thing you're trying to connect to. And I'm going to make sure I didn't copy any tabs or invisible spaces into it. So just the address. So that's the start. The other thing I need to do is put my username at that address. Anybody know what their username is?
Where did you get the IP address from?
That was what we did with the whole Elastic IP thing. So it's that public address of our server that we got. And it's right there. Up here, easy for copying and pasting. So it's the public facing IP address of this server. So you know you can like see that server. And then the username is the next step. Anybody want to guess what our username is? Yeah, I wish it was that easy. If it works the way it worked last time, and I hope it does, they name every user on these systems EC2-user. You're just supposed to magically know that. It's also in the picture down there. EC2 user at IP address of server. We're off to a good start. Then you need to tell it about this key you just made. So under the connections pane over here, under SSH, connections, SSH, and auth, sorry. Ooh, yeah, right there. It says private key file for authentication down here. You're going to browse to wherever you stashed your PPK file. That's going to say, all right, use the username under session here, which is EC2 user at IP address on port 22. Use the private key as the password, basically, and connect. I'm going to save this so I don't have to do this every time I want to log in. And then if everything worked, I'll get this alert that says, hey, I don't have this public key on file. Are you sure you trust this server? And I should say yes, because it's the first time connecting. If you see that again, time to get suspicious. At this point, I connected to a server. It says that I've got 2 packages updated for security out of 13, and I should do sudo yum update in order to apply the updates. So let me know when you guys get there.
I got an error that says no supported authentication methods available, and then the window says server refused our key.
Ruh-roh.
I got that too.
Ruh-roh. What'd you guys do differently than I did? Well, go ahead and share your screen and we'll walk through that process again.
All right, I'll do that.
All right, Isaac wins. He was quicker on the draw. But we'll follow along and see what's going on here.
You need to stop screen sharing before I can.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, guys. My other classes don't make me do that. And let me put this down here. Okay, now your faces are going to be on. That's not so bad. There you go. All right, so hit wait.
Whoops.
So go back into Putty and load it. So click on that, load. Let's go look at your key under SSH. It's authentication, right? Nice username. Huh, all right, well, let's back it up. Oh, wait, go back into, since you got denied, I assume that's the IP address for your server, right? Just,
yeah, I grabbed it off of...
Okay, yeah, that looks legit. All right, so let's double check. Let's double check the export process. So we'll do the Putty gen thing again. So start Putty gen. Let's load in that PEM file. Remember, you have to switch it to all files. Successfully imported. All right. Now let's just save private key. Yep. Is Descent still a thing?
I got the trilogy for like $10 off.
I was a fan back in the day. All right, give it a new name. There you go. All right, back into Putty. Load that saved connection. You have to click on it first. Yep. And then back into auth for SSH. Browse again. Now I think you should just be able to hit, well, hit session one more time real quick. It is SSH. All right, let's hit open. That should do it. Huh. Well, now let's look at your instance. Wait, go back for reload Putty one quick second.
Putty or Putty gen?
Putty. And load up that, load up your connection. Oh, so I didn't say hyphen loud enough. EC2 hyphen user.
That's it.
Oh.
Save that. Wait, save. Then load. Because you'll be working on your homework and you'll be cursing my name because you won't remember why you can't connect.
Hey.
Bingo. Excellent. And that's where we want everybody to get. So sorry I didn't say the hyphen loud enough. Cool. So the next thing, anybody done Unix before? Any Linux before? Here's your first chance. Let's update our servers to the latest version. We probably shouldn't have to do this all the time for class. Sudo lets you do things as super users, so you can do sudo su, and you'll become super user. Or you can do it like they tell you to and do sudo yum update. And at least get it up to date for currently. Yes, it's okay.
The yum or what input did you put in for the yum update? Just YUM?
Yeah, and actually you should be staring at the words you're supposed to be typing right now. So it should be the first thing that the console told you. And let me make my session larger so that you're not squinting at miniature little text.
Is this okay?
I'm assuming we hit Y for yes.
Yes, sir. So download for 30 megs. All right. You're going to blow 30 megs worth of transfer fees, but it's probably not that good. Yum is the tool used by, I'm trying to remember which particular distro. Wow, that's how old that is. The Yellow Dog Updater Modified. Yellow Dog was like this old school Linux that was built to run on Macs. Jiminy Christmas. But it is a way to update software. If you use like a Mac, you might do like Brew to do your package management. But it's gone through, it's added a new kernel. Notice that like Amazon is making their own Linux kernels for you, which I think is cool. And now we should be able to do things like, can you yum install? Oh, can't get CMatrix. How about, can I get htop? We need some stupid Linux tricks so that we can look cool when people walk past our terminals. I'm a big fan of this thing called tmux that lets you share your terminal with other people. Now I can do tmux, we do htop, and I get this cool like display. Htop's showing me CPU memory usage, swap usage, and then all the programs that are running on a system. So ta-da, we have a Linux server all to our lonesomes. Why is this IP address different than the IP address I saw when I set up my server? Notice it says root at IP. Does it say that if you're not root? Yeah, it does. It says EC2 instance and then the IP address of the server. No thoughts? I just wanted to call that one out. That is the, notice you under your Elastic IP instance here, you've got that public IP address, but then you've also got this private IP address. So that 72.31.21.228, that's the address the server lives on locally, like on the inside network. So like your computer at your house has an address that's probably like 192.168.1 dot something, but the public address is different. Same kind of setup here. Excellent. If you have a Mac, I understand some students do, when you want to connect with the regular terminal, you have the built-in Macintosh terminal to use to do that. There is a program called CyberDuck that is going to be the equivalent of what we do with Winscp, which should be the next download if you're using Windows. So rush right out and grab yourself a copy of Winscp, the free award-winning file manager.
Before we continue, what windows can I close? Because I have a ton open.
So the only ones you need to keep open is we're going to be coming back to your EC2 management console. You don't need the download manager window. You don't need the Putty search window. Might be handy to keep the documentations around. So probably those three you'll be fine. You should keep your Putty instance running. The Windows machines have this marvelous minimization feature where you can just minimize a window until you need it later. So just hide that one for a while. We'll probably be coming back to it, at least to check when we go to connect on the network. Because right now we have a server, but what we want is a web server, and we're not there yet. Luckily, making a web server is pretty straightforward, though. All right. Good. You ready to resume?
Yeah, so now we're going on to Winscp.
Correct. Which is just a download. Oops. It worked just fine, letting me direct download it, or without having to hit direct download. Doink. And now,
You use more ad blocks than I do.
oh, I use what is this thing called? uBlock Origin. The guy who wrote uBlock had a falling out with his team, so there's a uBlock out there, and then there's a uBlock Origin out there. Origin's the good one. When I run the setup here, I'm just updating because I'm sure I've got this installed. It should prompt you to import any saved Putty configurations, which will like save you some work. So this is like every other Windows program you've ever installed. Looking for sites to import. Oh, mine didn't do it.
I got a prompt. I'm assuming I just clicked yes.
Does it say, would you like to import this site?
Yep.
Yeah. Then this, if you do it that way, it should save you the trouble of going through what I'm about to have to go through to get my, you have to go through and do the same thing you did for Winscp that you did for Putty. So I'm going to set this up to be SCP. I think the Amazon documentation walks you through all of this too. Yeah, so transferring files to your Linux instance using Winscp after you've converted your key. You go into advanced, go into authentication, find your private key. Did everybody else get that just automatic pop-up? That's
Yeah,
a
just
hey.
automatically that.
Yeah. So if you screwed something up, or you already had Winscp installed, you're probably pro enough to do that. Also, fun fact, you can show the public key. Okay. Should have the IP address of the public facing IP address of the server. The username of EC2 user, all right? I'm going to save that. This is just a convenient handle for you to have if you save the session. And hopefully when you hit login, you should get the same kind of, hey, this is a new key, I haven't seen this before message. You say yes and it will connect. If you see that later on down the road, that should be a sign of some concern. Hopefully you won't. But now I'm on, the way this thing works is like this side of the screen, the one that like my head is in, is the remote server. So my new Linux server, and the other side is my Windows computer, rocking and rolling. So this lets me copy files back and forth. So say I had, let's see, on my desktop, no, of course not. I'm in OneDrive because Windows is trying to be tricky. Desktop, I have my classes, I have web apps 1, I have those JavaScript and jQuery files from the student downloads. Someday, at the end of this, we'll want to take these, and not yet, but later on we'll want to upload them into the server so that we can view them on the web like we will real web apps someday. All right, so now we have a web server. It has a public IP address. We can connect to it using the magic of public-private key pair SSH-based communications. So our communications are secure. Anybody know why we A, cannot do that, and B, should not do that? And that meaning, why can't we connect to these with like Telnet and FileZilla like we did in our HTML class? No thoughts? Nobody mentioned this to you guys at all. All right, I am saddened, but let me be the first folk to break this to you. Old protocols like Telnet and FTP pass the username and password in plain text. So if you typed username bob@raider.grcc.edu, password, and hit enter, when that goes across the wire, anybody who can see that wire potentially can read that. So if you're on Wi-Fi and somebody's looking at that traffic, somebody can see it. Somebody did an interesting experiment not too long ago where they set up a Tor exit node. And if you're interested in Tor, I recommend you look it up, and looked for FTP usernames and passwords and Telnet usernames and password, and saw all kinds of them flying across the wire, even in, I want to say that was like 2015, 2016. So people using Tor should know better, because they should give a shit about security and privacy. But so this is just a good way not to get your password hacked. This server is now rubber hose attack proof. You guys familiar with the rubber hose attack? A rubber hose attack is if I really, really want to know your password. I find some big dudes, I get a van, I get a burlap sack, and we wait till you're leaving someplace, and the big dudes open up the van, pull you into the van, and we drive away real fast. And then we go someplace quiet, far away from witnesses, and we take out a rubber hose. And then we say, we would like to know the password to grccwebapps.ml. And I say, no, I can't tell you. And then they just go at you with the rubber hose. But now I can't tell them because I don't have it. Go get my laptop. Please, I didn't put a password on it just in case somebody started beating me with a hose. So like there's some real security here. You can't read the communications because SSH is encrypted. It's the real deal and how we do business these days. All right, so in theory, you guys are half done with this assignment already. You've got an EC2 instance. You might be on the way to someday getting a DNS server name that you can use for this class and beyond. I recommend the and beyond. Now we need to set up LAMP, but not PHP admin. So you can actually stop at la for this class. Does anybody know what we mean by LAMP in this instance? Or have you heard the LAMP stack or the WAMP stack? Or can you Google them faster than I can ask the question? Just to prove I'm not making this mess up.
So we got Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP.
There you go. Sometimes that's Linux, Apache. These days it's Maria database, MariaDB, and then PHP, and then PHP admin. So you can finish this up if you want to. I'm not going to do the PHP and Apache. Or I'm not going to do. We've already done Linux. We're going to do Apache, and that's really all you need for this class. For the next class, potentially, unless I can change my mind real fast and find a Java framework I like, or a JavaScript framework I like, we're going to stick with PHP for the server side language, and the Maria database is the database we use, and we'll use a tool called phpMyAdmin to manipulate that database so I don't have to teach you an entire SQL class in addition to the web apps class. Although taking a SQL class before you take the web apps class, very helpful. So again, we've got the link to the fine materials here. We'd like to prepare, test, and secure. Let's see here. We're already connected to the instance. A fun thing about these Amazon docs, like they're kind of designed for developers, so they don't expect you to be a Linux super user, and they've got this copy button right here, so you can copy the command in here. So in this case, sudo yum update -y, which you can then just paste in there. In Putty, right-clicking is paste, so you don't have to go. I don't even know how to paste in Putty except for like that. I guess you can't. So right-click to paste into Putty. Super handy. So go through and run that sudo yum updates -y, Did we need to do that?
No,
Because,
we already did it.
right, when we connected. All right, and just to keep it easy, we'll copy this. Sudo Amazon Linux extras install -y lamp MariaDB blah, 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 blah. Copy, paste, go. And it should go through and download and install all this stuff. At the end, if you're curious, it gives you a report about what got installed, what version, blah, blah, blah. There you go. Did anybody get an error while they were doing that? I didn't see any like, ah! Which should kind of mean everybody more or less has a web server running. Uh-oh. Maybe not. A web server installed. Oh, here we go. Nope. So copy the next one. I skipped a step. We need to yum install HTTPD, the Hypertext Terminal Protocol daemon, and the MariaDB, or Maria. I always want to say Mariah with that. Oops. And again, it goes out and it does all this package management business for you. Kind of the same thing as just clicking setup on the database web server thing. Ta-da! So it went through, it installed the server and a bunch of things that the server depends on. And now I can do system control start HTTPD and it starts. All right, I'm done, right? So I should be able to go, how could I currently get to a web server? Any thoughts? How do you guys get to your web servers when you want to see like web pages?
Use a browser.
That's usually how I do it, yeah. What if oh. So naughty, I'm used to running around as root all the time. Can I install links? Oh, cool, I can. You don't need to do this. This is for informational purposes only. Was it 172.31.21.228? Oh no, I got a forbidden error message. But at least there's a test page there. This test page is the proper orientation of the Apache server after it's been installed, blah, 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 blah. Did you guys all get that? If you go to your IP address with your web browsers? Or do you get something like this?
Yeah, I think mine's going to time out.
Any thoughts on why that might be? Before we forget, we did sudo Apache. We should probably use system control to make sure that Apache starts every time it starts. And that's this command here, sudo system control enable HTTPD. So I'm going to quit out of this. And now it should start up every time. You can check. Is enabled HTTP? It is enabled. So it should start up every time. So yes, our connection timed out. Why did our connection time out? Well, because we have firewall rules in place that don't allow anybody to come into that server except for us over over SSH right now. So what we need to do is now that you have become system administrators, you need to become firewall administrators and punch some holes in this firewall so that web pages can get out and requests for web pages can get in. Luckily, we have directions. So you don't have to be an awesome system administrator. But let's follow the documentation here. The applying rules to a security group. Go into your console. In the navigation pane, find security groups. So I'll make that bigger. Up here is security groups.
Wait, where'd you go?
I went back to the EC2 dashboard.
Oh, I see security groups.
There you go. So now we've just got the one group. I think it's time to create a new one. And here's the walkthrough on how to do that. Action, edit inbound rules. We'd like to, well, we should give it a name first, right? You've actually got all of these like terrible, horrible rules you can pick from at the start. Just allow all traffic in, allow all UDP in. Don't do that. That's bad. But we should do one for HTTP. That's TCP, port 80, source, anywhere on the internet. Those are going to be insecure web pages. And I'll do another one for HTTPS that anywhere can get to, and those will be not web pages. And right now it says all traffic, all protocols, all range are allowed to leave. So that much seems legit. So there you go. We've got a virtual firewall that protects our instance that we're going to just allow two different types of traffic through. Traffic controlled by ports. 80 is the port for regular HTTP. 443 is the port for HTTPS. Oops. Don't hit add another one.
Are we going to add anything for outbound or no?
I believe by default it said it would allow all outbound traffic to leave. So I think we can leave that alone. I hope we can leave that alone. Outbound rules, all traffic, all protocols, all port ranges are allowed to leave. So I think that's going to be fine the way it is. Next we have to go apply that. So to apply to EC2, go to security groups, add, let's see, we'll find out in a second. Add inbound rule. We chose the source. Optionally describe as description, preview changes, change in group. Now we need to edit this bad boy to add in. Oops, it'll be easier if I make this full screenish. All right, does everybody have what looks to be a relatively reasonable security group added?
No, how did you add that? I'm on the...
Oh no, did you create the group?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're where we are. You got default launch wizard when we started. Next, go to our instance and select our instance. Under security groups, choose view inbound rules. Hopefully we achieve that. So let's walk through that one. Wait, did I not add that right? Oh no, I'm not optimized. Let me go back to this rule. I screwed it up while I was making it. Oh, I created a security group. Wait, no. Yeah, that looks good. Now I'm trying to figure out, do we have to restart it to get that to apply or what? That looks right, that looks right. So I'm trying to figure out which step I missed in here. That should have been it. All right, just to cheat this, I'm going to go and add to this launch wizard rule. But I don't want to cheat if I don't have to. Disallows traffic in. Give it a name, give it a protocol, give it a port range. You specify a group. This affects all instances associated with the group. So I'm just going to put those same rules into the default one that's already in there, as opposed to trying to figure out where I screwed that up. So I went in to the security group here. I'm just editing the launch wizard rule. And adding HTTP to it. And if somebody wants to figure out what I screwed up when I was going through creating a new rule and applying it, I would love to know. But this is doing more or less the same thing. So change that rule to this rule.
And you want one with both HTTP and HTTPS in it?
Yep. So now it'll have HTTP, HTTPS, and SSH in there. And when we apply that, I wonder if I'll get my connection dropped. Not so much. So sorry, that was the long way around.
What do I put in the source field?
Oh, so the first drop down you see in source when you're creating the rule. So if I add a rule,
anywhere.
Yeah, is anywhere, and it will create that quad 0 address and subnet mask. I'll probably get 2 when I like restart the server or something. But now that I've gone through all that rigmarole, I should get something like this when I load up my web page, my web server. So now you should have like a web server on the internet that is under your and only your control.
Yep, I see the same page.
Yep, that's the generic, I've got a web server page going. So like I think this was the first part of the assignment. And really, for this class, this is as far as you need to go. You don't need to configure PHP or the database because you're not going to use them. So if you can get a web server up and running, punch it through there. The next thing we need to do is come up with encryption for this web page. So notice I've got connection not secure. So if you develop a web app that runs on an insecure connection, you should be warned that the web browser manufacturers are going to cry at the users about how insecure your web page is, which is no good. Once upon a time, it was like this big ordeal to go through and get web pages certified. So you'd have to go out, you'd have to hire somebody to generate a certificate. Now there is a tool called Let's Encrypt, and we are going to automate security certificate automation on Let's Encrypt. That's the next step in our AWS EC2 LAMP install document to do that. And it is what we're going to do. I'll talk you through it, but essentially we're going to cut and paste the steps to do that because it is designed to make the process of getting a certificate like dirt simple. So I recommend you take a gander at the Certbot guide that's in there. But really, it's just going to be a matter of getting our server ready, requesting a certificate, getting the certificate issued, and then it will actually update our system with that certificate. So you want to have the certificate on an automation Let's Encrypt with Certbot on Amazon Linux too. Or if you want to play on hard mode, there's a whole tutorial at the top of this that talks about the old style way to do it and teaches you all about SSL and TLS and the exciting things you can do with that. I'm going to recommend that you definitely review and understand that. But for the sake of making your life easier, you can start with the Let's Encrypt bot and let the robot do the work for you. Because it's going to do down here all the stuff they did up there. So the first step is to get EPL release from Fedora project, blah, 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 this big package thing. Luckily, I can just copy and right-click to paste that. So copy up here, right-click to paste. And it goes down and gets all this software. So wget is a website getter, and it just went out and downloaded a bunch of stuff for us. So that's cool. So that, ooh, was I in the home directory? I was goofing around. Okay, cool. If you do pwd, it will tell you what your present working directory is, and currently I'm in Etsy, or in home EC2 user. So I downloaded that stuff. If I do ls-la, it will show me what I downloaded. I downloaded something from dl.fedoraproject.org. I'm going to install the repository. Luckily, they've got the command there, so I don't have to know it. Boop, boop. And it is installed. Step C here is I need to enable it. So again, I copy, I paste. So far, so good. If you want to confirm it, and heck, why not? We can confirm that with the following command, which should return something similar. This is going to show us the list of repositories. That's what it means with repo lists. So places where software is kept. And now here's where we need a DNS address. So since a certificate is tied from one domain name to one address, now's the time where we need a DNS name. So Isaac, did you get that email yet?
Let me check. Nope.
It's gonna be tough. So I will show you an example. This is where you're going to earn your grades. So if you can't get it for free, you can get it for $1 or $2. And seriously, I think you should consider buying a good one that you're going to keep. Let me get back into freenom.com. I think it took as long as 24 hours the last time we did this. You get what you're paying for in this life. And I've got my domains. I'm going to manage grc with webapps.ml. It appears to be accurate. I'm going to manage the Freenom DNS service I bought. If you do this with any other registrar or host, they will have some similar thing where you can go in and you can create, you can manage your DNS somehow. All right, you have to be able to say, I want this name to go to this address. So for me, I am going to have grccwebapps.ml go to, what address do you think I should use? This one. would probably be a good idea. So I want it to go to the address, the permanent Amazon IP address for this server. So it seems legit. I actually don't want the whole HTTP business in there. And then, what is this thing called? There you go. You might do a www. And then these record modifications are not instantaneous, theoretically, either. So they can take a minute. But at this point, if I go to grccwebapps.mil,
under the manage my domains, did you just click manage freenom DNS?
Yep.
So then in the target field, I just paste the URL.
You paste the IP address.
Yeah, the IP address.
But not the HTTP blah 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 blah.
Do I put anything in the name field?
You can leave it blank, and that should catch grccwebapps.mil. I also added a record for www because that's like traditional. So did you actually get a address?
I was able to click on the manage, and I'm looking at the. Yeah, I had to do that, and then I got to the manage screen. I didn't add a record for www. How do I do that?
Just go back into that management tool, and where it has the name, put the name in there. I'm going to do this one too as long as I'm at it, so I'll get there as well. How do I switch it to freenom DNS? That's going to be the big question.
The name for what?
Oh, I have to go back in. So hang on. Share your screen real quick. And I'll stop sharing so you can. Go for it. There you go. So no dot, just www, and then the same target. And save your changes.
Cool.
What DNS record was invalid? Did you have like a space in there or something? Those look right. Those seem legit. So remember that whois website I showed you at the beginning? See if you can do a whois for your newly created domain name. Loading. Oh, the domain name, not the IP address. But they will sell you an IP address that is just that list of numbers. So what was it? GRCC something or other?
Oh, I don't remember what the domain name was.
It should be listed in freenom there for you.
Do you have a way to make this black bar like vanish on command?
Well, I'm not seeing a black bar. What are you talking about?
Oh, it's not. It's the Zoom black bar. the menu bar.
Oh, yeah, I used to. It was like control something something, or just hide. There you go. So that's what you want to who is, and see if somebody knows who that is. That's actually searching GoDaddy. I think all it'll tell you is that you can't have it. You want to do who is.
Is it just whois.com?
There's a bunch of them. Just put who is lookup into the Google machine. You just want one that's better than that. You can actually do it from the command line with. That's an ad. Look how many. Whois.com. Who is? Those guys look legit. About the fourth link down. Ooh, lookup.ican. Whois.domain tools. Whois.net. Any of those should be legit. Prove to us you're not a register. So these guys, ICANN, can't look up .tk domains. Again, more problems with the free domain servers. So all whois.net tells you is that it's already taken. If you scroll down, does it have any more data? Who was I using? It's so janky. Prove that you are not a low robot. Well, would you look at that? So do you know how to start a command line command?
CMD.
What? Is this Windows 7?
Yeah.
Dear God. Can you ping...
Wait, really?
Can you ping your website now? If you middle click on the blue bar up there, I think you can get to edit paste for your command prompt. Yeah. There you go. Drum roll, please. Hit enter. Oh, it knows the address. Now you won't get a response back, but what you just did was verify that DNS is working. So hit Aws Ec grcc projects.tk in your web browser, and you should have a website. Look at that. grcc web apps dot, what was it, tk.mil? I'm trying to get to where you're at, basically. .ml. Because I've got to wait for my old one to age out. So did anybody else get a new web address here, other than Isaac? When he took over sharing, it hid your participant view.
Do you want me to keep sharing or no?
Yeah, because I want you to do the next part for us. The next part will be, I have to keep flushing my DNS until mine comes back up. Because right now it thinks it's the old address. So the next step is to run that Certbot. I guess actually I can share so you can follow along. We were working on the Certbot install guide there. And let me check in with the rest of you guys. So did anybody else get a DNS name? A domain name, rather, from the freebie guys?
Shopping around, so.
Shopping around? All right. So the place you got to get is to, we just saw Isaac do it just about perfectly. But now that we have a domain name pointed at a web server, we can move on and get a certificate for it. But everybody at least has an IP address that's tied to a EC2 instance. Yes?
So where are you now?
So that is the inside of the link from this page. This is the Certbot automation process. So we can use Let's Encrypt to set that up. So we did all of this business, downloaded the package, installed the repo, enabled the repo, double checked that. Now we have to actually edit a file in Linux. Oh, buddy. This is where stuff gets real. Oh, and let me share my screen so it looks not just like my head. So I'd love this to work on one of my instances here. So I have to wait for a domain name to catch up. But that whole process that Isaac pulled off in a matter of moments can sometimes take, like each of those steps can sometimes take a bunch of time to happen. So I'm trying to set up mine too. So Isaac, can you get to both www.yourdomain.com and the domain name without a www?
Let me try. So doing it without a www brings me to that test page. And then if I put a www in, it also brings me to that test page.
Good deal. So you have a web server that's responding to requests for either one of those names. They're slightly different.
What is the request without www?
The same thing. You know, it's just a matter of a HTTP request is just a request for an IP address. So the only difference is that when it goes out and does the DNS lookup, that it finds a particular address. So let's see if I'm going to have to wait for the DNS system to catch up on Cyber Command as well. So in Windows, if you want to get rid of all the cached DNS records on your computer, ipconfig flush DNS will tell it to forget you ever heard of any of those DNSs. My webapps.ml is still resolving to this old address from the last class. Back. So it's going to keep going to old servers to try and find it. And I'm going to have to wait for the DNS system to time out. Although maybe I can force it by saying, hey, look up this address you've never heard of before. But I don't know. All of this depends on like how reactive all of these different servers are at updating the record and then timing out all of the other DNS records that may have it in their brains and so on and so forth. So if I ping nope, it's still looking at the old name servers. So I have to wait for the like name servers that I'm connecting to realize that grcc web apps moved. So with a new address, you just had to wait for the domain servers to exist and then have a record for you. So domain first goes to the dot. You may not realize this, but at the end of every web address, it's like cybercommand.mil dot. So it goes out to the root servers, the dots out there, and says, hey, where do I find the information about .ml? And the root servers give it the server that's responsible for the .ml domains. It goes there. It says, hey, I need to know about this cybercommand.ml. and so on, and then it gets the authoritative name for that, and then eventually it finds these my domain freenom DNS servers, and the DNS servers say, hey, the address for cybercommand.ml is whatever I put into this web page. And if you go and use some other web service to do this, A, you may have a better user experience than what you get with the freenom stuff, but B, it obviously will look slightly different than that. Because I'm still waiting for the manage my page window to show up. All right, so next steps. Now we have to edit the file name. And this may just be Isaac while I wait for my DNS to catch up, who actually gets a successful result here. So notice it says, edit the main Apache configuration file directive and add the following lines to it after replacing the example domains with the actual common name and subject alternative names for your website. So that is, Isaac, what was your name? Isaac GRCC projects?
Yeah, ISAAC GRCC projects.tk.
All right, and then www.isaac blah, blah, blah. So that's unique to each of your own servers, right? Ooh, hello. Sweet. So my other domain name caught up. All right, so it took a minute, but my cyber command did eventually show up. So I have an A record for www, and I have an A record for just cybercommand.ml. So I'll be able to play along too. So what I've got to do is I've got to find the place where this exists in this file. I think I can do this. So back into Putty, and Isaac, you should play along at home. And guys, you can do this after you have working web pages. I'm going to use a tool called Nano to edit this file. Nano's kind of like 1985 text editor.
So I just type in nano into Putty?
I think so, yeah. You type in, I mean, be more precise with your language. You type in nano to a connection to your web server. And then I pasted etc httpd conf.httpd conf. Similarly, one of the things you should get in the habit of with Linux is tab completing things. So I also could have typed nan tab, right? And it'll finish the command for me. And then I can do etc http tab co tab / httpd.conf. And when I do that and I hit enter, it brings up this file that I can't edit. Control X closes. Don't save the buffer. What did I do? Oh, I put a little thing in there.
I typed in nano without the file path or the extension after it.
Yep.
And I'm looking at a
Linux-based console text editor, something like this.
that.
Okay, so all of these things down at the bottom are the commands you can use to navigate around. The little caret indicates that you should use control in order, the control key on your keyboard, in order to do those commands. So notice control X is how you exit.
Is that what I want to do?
Yeah, because you want to open a file. You also want to sudo, which gives you superpowers, nano /etc /htt /conf. Oops, so many forward slashes. So this is, now we're editing files on a remote server. And this is why, for like people who are going to do a lot of this, I recommend you learn VI or Emacs. I recommend you learn VI. Emacs is for masochists. But if you really want to learn Emacs, I'm not going to stop you. But the visual editor, or VIM, Visual Editor Improved, is another way to do this. But this is like the quick and dirty way I teach my children how to edit files on remote Linux servers. Oops. And then what's it say we're supposed to do to this file? It says, find listen80 directive and add the following lines after it replacing the example domains with the actual names for our server. All right, so after that, I'm going to be adding this virtual host business. So again, I'm just going to copy, go down here using the arrow keys, and my cursor moves around. And I found the listen thing, and now I'm just going to right click to paste that in. And then I'm going to move around with the arrow keys again, and I'm going to replace this with my websites. So for me, it's cybercommand.ml. And
so I'm pasting, or I'm typing in nano and then the file extension, and it's not bringing me to where you are.
So it's not a file extension, that's a file name. But let me finish this up and then let's share your screen and we'll walk you through it. So now I've edited the file, I hit Control X, I say yes to save the buffer, I write it out to the file name, and hopefully that's where we're at. So now I have completed step 2 here, and I'm going to restart Apache real quick so that I leave off at kind of a sensible place. And if I screw up that file, I'll get an error here, and it'll say, you screwed up this file. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing. Hide video panel is Control-Alt-Shift-H, by the way, to get that black bar out of your way.
All right.
All right, so nano, you put a dot at the end of the conf. So you created a new file called conf dot. All right, hit enter. That looks legit. Did you sudo nano? Yeah, it says root. Okay, you're good. Now you got to use the arrow keys to scroll down. There you go. You found the listen line right there. Go up. You could read all the things in this file. You might find it interesting. And then you're going to copy and paste the virtual host business from there. Yep. So copy. Get the cursor in the right place. Yeah, right there. Paste.
Right there.
That looks good. And then you're going to replace example.com with your website on both of those lines. So backspace will clear things out, although you've still got the M there. Nope. Control C will cancel that insert you just tried to do. Delete that one more time. Get that M out of there. So move your arrow forward, hit the delete key. Oh, I got to put a quote in. Oh man, what's going on? Sorry, I keep saying delete key, I mean backspace key. There you go. If you go to the S in server alias, wait, you don't have to type it. Just, you copied it to the clipboard. Yep, now if you right click, you get the whole thing. Notice that web browsers are messing with you these days and they're adding the HTTP : and the slash at the end, all of which you want to get rid of. So again,
Same thing for the server alias.
well, so back it up. So see where it says server name, there's no space, you want a space. And then you want to get rid of that. Where are you going? The HTTP : needs to go. And then since this is the server name is just Aws Ec2 grcc projects.tk. So get rid of that .ww. Right. Then go over to server alias. And remember, you can't use your mouse. This is like command line only. Go where the S is in server alias. Hit enter. And then tab to get it to line up. Backspace. A couple of spaces to get it to line up. There you go. And then example.com should be www.awsecgrccprojects.com. .tk. And you want the www, you don't want the other nonsense. You want to get rid of those forward slashes that are trailing at the end of those server names. All right. Whew. Welcome to editing in a DOS box. So, guys, good luck with that on your own. You get the idea. You might want to try screwing around with nano. You can edit this file right now. So if you have an idea of what server you're going to put in there, you might want to give it a try while you've got standby tech support. So hit Control key plus X to exit.
I don't want to hit enter or anything.
No, that looks legit. That's how we wanted the file to look.
So just then Control X.
Yep, Control X, it'll ask you to save, and then say yes. And yet hit enter here, and you will save it as a file in the Etsy folder, in the httpd folder, in the conf folder called httpd.conf. Whew. Ain't that fun? Imagine writing code like that remotely. It is a thing that gets done. All right, I'm going to steal the ball back, and that looks like we should be ready to move on. So it said edit this configuration file and then restart httpd. And so again, copy that command, paste it into your system. And what it'll do is it'll jiggle the handle. It'll turn it off and turn it back on again. And now your system turns off and then it restarts after reading in those changes we made to the configuration file. We're almost home. We're super close. Now we need to install Certbot and the dependencies. And we can install that just with this command. We copy it, we paste it, and it will go down and download all these things. And Certbot's just a robot that will go out and get us certificates, and it will authenticate those certificates for us by magic. And the way it's going to do that under the hood is it's going to make a change to the web server. The certification site is called Let's Encrypt is going to verify those changes happen, and then it's going to issue a certificate for us. And it does the whole thing like magic. So now we just run it. Isaac, you get that much to work?
Yeah. So now I pasted in the run certbot command.
Yep. Uh-oh. Select authentication. Enter email address used for urgent renewals. Feel free to use your gRCC address for this. Read the terms of services real quick. I've already read these, obviously, so I can just hit accept and move on. Would I be willing to share my email address with the EFF? Sure. I'm a big believer in the Electronic Frontiers Foundation. And then which names do I want to activate? I can enter the appropriate numbers separated by commas. So I'm going to do 1 and 2. And now it's going to try and go out and get a certificate. This might blow up for me because I have had certificates for this before, but it looks like it worked. All right, congratulations. My certificate and chain have been saved at this location. So again, I got another one of those certificate dealies, a PEM file that says I am in fact cybercommand.ml. I've got a private key, etc., etc. I could donate to the Internet Engineering Task Force or for those guys. So it should have looked a whole lot like that. And then after you complete it, we might gonna go harden our servers. That's probably beyond the scope of this. But the big question will be, if I do cybersomand, if I go to cybercommand.ml, do I get a little lock that is happy? Ah, that's what a secure website looks like. So far, so good. And for funsies, since I'll probably keep the server running, I am going to do this last step. Isaac, did you manage to get to a secure version of your webpage?
I have a nifty looking lock.
Oh my goodness. Look at you go. I'm going to finish that configuration. And this is another fun editing command, but I'm going to edit this Etsy cron tab file here, and you don't have to do this for this class. You'll be done before this, well, nope, you might want to do this because your certificate will expire in 30 days now, I think is how long it's going to do. Will expire on 21/1/03. All right, so actually I'm good. You might want to verify that your certificate won't expire during the class because then I'll be mad that I'm having to look at non-secure websites, and your web apps should be secure. Whoops. That's going to break. I want to edit. That's Etsy cron tab. If you wanted to make sure this thing happens all the time, you can go in and edit this file, and by putting it in here, it will run the renew certbot renew no self upgrade command for me every so often. So here it is going to schedule it. It will run twice daily. That will renew. It will get a certificate when it approaches its expiration date, and it won't upgrade to some new service without me intervening, and then I'm going to run the update. So this is what you want for doing your homework. You want a web server out there called yourwebsite.com or whatever, yourwebsite.tk, that is up and running and secure, that we can check the certificate, and it will say something like, "You're securely connected, verified by Let's Encrypt." And if you do the cybersecurity class down the road, you'll be like, "Oh man, I remember all this certificate stuff I had to do. I had no idea what I was doing." But in a nutshell, you're just making the connection to your network secure. Pretty straightforward. So what else does it say I have to do today? You can do this as well without having the website set up. If you've got a secure connection to your server using the Winscp, Winscp, you may recall, is like our what's the name of that? FileZilla, the FTP client that comes from Mozilla. So I hope I have right access to this. Our web server is going to feed up. I don't have right access to that. So our web server is going to feed up whatever files are inside of var www HTML. So if we do a listing of var www HTML, there's nothing in it right now. So if there's nothing in it, it shows you that weird page we've been seeing. But if we look at what's going on in var www, notice that they're owned by root, and if you do ls-la in a Linux system, it tells you who owns a file and what groups they belong to. And right now these tell you the permissions on a file and what you can do. So it's telling me that it's a directory, that root has read, write, and execute, that the group can read and execute, and that the rest of the group can read and execute. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break that, and I'm going to let anybody read, write, and execute to them, which is bad mojo. This is horrible security practice. What should happen is there should be a user on the server called var, like www or Apache user or something. But take our web server security class, and we'll show you how to do this right. I think the quick and dirty way to fix this is to go to var www and just schmod the whole thing. So if I want to change file permissions in the Linux, if I do chmod, C-H-M-O-D, is change mod, and I do -R, big R, I think that's the right command, that will change the whole recursive directory structure. So I'm going to say you should do this on your server so you can upload stuff to it. Chmod 777, which means read, write, and execute for everybody. You can also do some letters and stuff, but we're not going to. And then www. And what should happen here is it's going to change who owns that, or what people can do to that www directory. Ooh, I hope I did it in the right directory. Yep, there's var www. Now everybody can read, write, and execute to it. Now everybody can read and write, execute to these. And it shows you them in neon orange because that's bad mojo, and you should be aware of that. But hopefully it means if I go back to Winscp, I can come over here and into var ww, I can copy all the student download stuff to my server. And notice it doesn't give me an error message this time. So that was a lot. Let's verify that that happened for you guys. Or at least for Isaac. Ultimately, what should happen then is I should be able to go to my web server and look at the example code running on a web server.
What was the command? It was var.
All right, so you want to share your screen and we'll walk through it. It'll be good for the other folks to see exactly the same thing. I'll stop the share here real quick. So delete that. Do ls space la space minus la. So that's the list and list all attributes. And then space.
So it's ls space minus la?
Yep. And then /var and hit enter. So there's all the folders that are in var. And you see www down there.
Yep.
So you want to chmod, chmod, space, and then -r is the recursive command, capital R, and then space, and then var space / sorry, VA, and then hit tab. You hit BA. It's one of the things tab completion teaches you when you've made a typo. So Victor Alpha, so VA. So this is the var directory and then W tab. And now you're going to change. Oh, and I forgot to tell you the numbers. So after R, it's supposed to be the numbers you want to set the permissions to. In this case, that's 777. Space 777. Yep. Hit enter. And then do the ls. Hit up arrow twice instead. There you go. And hit enter again. Cool. Now it's blue. Now you should be able. Do you still have Winscp open?
You can see it?
I can. So now hit that dot. Notice it tells you what directory you're in right now. It says home EC2 user.
Yep.
Go up another level. 2 dots take you up a level. And then go to www or var again, sorry. So this is the same directory you were looking at with the command line. Now you're looking at it with the not command line. And then www way down there at the bottom. And in HTML is where the HTML files should live for this server. So this is where you're going to upload your homework to in the future. But to just get started, upload the student download files from that you downloaded out of the what was it? It was in the resource section. So it had like the book apps and the exercises and the solutions and stuff.
Yeah.
So wherever you saved that.
All right, I'll poke around and do that. I don't remember where I saved them exactly.
That's okay. I'll share back my screen here. And if you look at my server, now that I've done all that, if I go to the /book apps directory, I actually see the book apps. So if I go to cybercommand.ml /book apps, what else did I have? But then I should be able to, like, if I wanted to look at that code for chapter 5, there it is running on my web server out in the internet. Whoo, doggy. Last couple of things you might want to do, and I'll let you go because I realize we're running late here, is you can make a snapshot of this server now that you've gone and done all this editing and played around with all the commands and got a name and all that good stuff. You can make a snapshot, which is basically like a save game. So you just go to the console, there's an electric block store under snapshots, blah, blah, blah. To make a copy of your work so that if something breaks, you can restore back. So for credit for this session, go into Piazza, tell me how far you got, what your next steps are going to be, and you're done. How'd I get that done in like an hour 20? Oh, I know, I didn't. I did it all alone, sitting in my basement all by myself. But that should more or less do it.